Welcome into a Friday night edition of the After Hours Lounge, brought to you by Bellevue University. You can keep up to date on all things Bellevue athletics by downloading the BU Bruins app to your smartphone. Tonight, John Schreiner, Jimmy Allen, Dave Campion with you here tonight. We got a great show lined up for you. Speaking of those Bellevue Bruins, we're going to catch up with Mark Heath Preston, the head coach of the men's soccer team of the Bellevue Bruins, later in the show. We're also going to talk to Lynn McNally, the CEO of Horseman's Park. And as always, Brian Munson, our good friend from Husker Online and On3, is going to stop by to talk to us tonight. You can get a hold of us at After Hours 1620. Our show is pre-recorded tonight, but if you want to interact on Twitter, John and I from our high school football games tonight would love to interact with you on social media. You can call 402-951-1620. You just want to ask Dan Campion how he's doing. He won't be able to put you on the radio, but you can talk to him there. John, it's been a week. You were famously not here on Wednesday because your family was sick. By the sound of my voice, I'm still going through it. How you feeling, man?
I'm doing okay. Yeah, I had a little touch of the crud like Sunday, Monday as well. So I know it's going around, man. Everybody's dealing with it. But yeah, I took Wednesday off to hold down the fort while my wife got
just a different fort. Yeah. Obviously a big game on Saturday tomorrow in Bloomington, Nebraska. A underdog to a top 25 team. We know Matt Rule's record against the top 25. We know Nebraska's record against the top 25 in the last 8 years. What do you need to see from this team tomorrow to feel better about the last 5 games left on the schedule?
Yeah, it's honestly, there's just one area of the game, and I've talked about it so much, like people are probably tired of hearing me say it. I think Nebraska's pretty good in every area of the game except run blocking. Like, this is the biggest problem for Nebraska and their offense and the football team in general. Like, special teams are a separate conversation. We know that. Like, that's been a problem. But I think you can overcome some of that if you're a team that can score a lot of points and play good defense, right? You can overcome your special teams woes if you can do that. Now, like, Nebraska hasn't been able to score a lot of points, primarily because short yardage situations, running the ball, they have just not been good enough. And a lot of that is on the offensive line. Like, this is a team that has to be able to run the ball against Indiana. You just have to. This is the more talented team. Like, Northwestern ran the ball in Indiana with great effect, right? Like, if you can't run the ball in this team, then we have problems. And honestly, you might have to start changing out some of those veteran offensive linemen you've stuck beside this whole time.
Yeah, and for me, the most surprising thing about tomorrow, I can't believe Nebraska's a 6.5 point underdog.
That's surprising.
Yeah, and we're gonna get to our predictions later in the game, but spoiler alert for that. I think Nebraska's going to win this game, and I understand that Indiana's undefeated. And they've looked impressive. We'll say they've looked impressive to some degree up until this point in the season, and but in Nebraska is on the road, but 6.5. Like, I don't feel like even. In a best case scenario for Indiana, they're a 7 point. They're better than Nebraska by 7 points.
They are not. They're definitely not. And like, yes, Indiana has scored a ton of points. And if you just look at the final scores of their games, you could be fooled into thinking that they just blew out everyone they've played, right? Go back and watch the highlights from the Northwestern game, right? That's a 3-point game midway through the fourth quarter. Northwestern turns it over and then goes for it on fourth down in their own end, trying to come back, right? Which sets up 2 late scores for Indiana on a short field.
Yeah, it was 27-24 in the fourth, right?
Yeah, and midway through the fourth.
Indiana ends up winning 41-24. So yeah, obviously a very misleading score. So, and I think Nebraska is way better than Northwestern. I don't think Nebraska's kind of better than Northwestern.
First of all, Nebraska's defense is
elite,
light years better than Northwestern's defense. Like, start there. So yes, Indiana has done what they should do if they're a good team against inferior competition. Now, I don't know that we can say the same thing about Nebraska, right? Like, Nebraska has struggled with teams who we look back at and say, well, that team's not very good, right? Looked real good against Colorado, which is looking better every day.
Yeah, right? They almost beat K-State.
Yeah.
Probably should have.
The win over Colorado is looking better and better and better. But I don't think they did. It was a good win, like a win over UTEP. Probably should have beat them by a lot more points, given what that team is.
Probably said the same thing
Right?
about Northern Iowa.
You could say that about Northern Iowa, and then if you look at what Purdue has been, the way that first half went, you probably should have beaten Purdue by a lot more than 18 points. And then
Oh.
Rutgers just went and got absolutely mollywopped by Wisconsin, who we don't think is all that great.
Well, and I think the Purdue thing, it's important to point out 3 touchdowns got called back in that game for Nebraska too.
Yeah.
And
it's
Rutgers really felt like they had the we just don't want to get blown out mentality when they came to Lincoln too, because it was a very concentrated effort to try and run some clock in that game by Greg Schiano. And I don't know how much that is they didn't want to get blown out, or the fact that they know, hey, this team has been prone to be giving up some big spots. If you keep games close, you could just keep it within reach. And listen, he was almost right. I mean, Nebraska tried fumbling that game away at the end. Yep. What is one thing that is unacceptable for you on Saturday coming off of a bye for Nebraska?
Penalties.
That's kind of where I'm at too. And this team has been able to shoot themselves in the foot miraculously over the last decade in spots where they shouldn't. And that's one thing that I think needs to be cleaned up tomorrow.
Yeah. Offensive penalties, the pre-snap stuff has to go. You got to get that out of there. The other thing
sold out game on the road. Top 25 opponent.
Okay, but it's like 52,000 people. It's not that bad.
And 30 of them are going to be wearing the right color of red for your side.
So offensive pre-snap penalties, absolutely unacceptable. The other thing is like the little things on defense, giving up those hidden yards with like a late hit on the quarterback or a late hit out of bounds. Some of those aggression penalties that might give Indiana a free first down here or there. Those could be huge in a game like this. Yeah. So it's just the discipline has to be absolutely locked on.
Who leads Nebraska in rushing tomorrow?
This is a tough call. Because I don't think Indiana's run defense is very good.
Not at all.
So I'm going to go with the guy who I think is going to be the starter, and I'm going to say Dante Dowdell.
I think we're going to look at this as the Emmett Johnson game. I think this is where I think to your point, I think Dowdell ends up starting the game, but I think Emmett Johnson, Matt Rule doesn't do things by accident, and he has name dropped Emmett Johnson a lot. Yeah. And the perfect place, if you feel like somebody deserves more playing time, or you can implement them into the game plan better, a bye week is the perfect time to do that. I think Dowdell stays your tone setter, stays your starter, but I think there's going to be a healthy dose of Emmett Johnson, and he's proven that he's the one guy in that room that can break a big play if needed. So that's who I'm going to go with for the leading rusher. Who leads Nebraska in receiving tomorrow?
The leading receiver, I'm going to go with Nair. He's been the best of the bunch so far this season. Ja'Cory Barney's done some really nice things underneath and with those slot reverses and things. But I think they're going to get back to Nair. He's going to find some open spaces in the middle of the field. And I think there's probably a big play touchdown to Nair in this game.
I think Isaiah Nair will lead Nebraska in receptions. I think Ja'Cory Barney will lead Nebraska in receiving yards. Right. I think this is the game where, to your point, Nebraska has shown, hey, we really like getting this guy the ball behind the line of scrimmage. Hey, have you seen him get the ball behind the line of scrimmage? You notice he's only touching the ball behind the line of scrimmage. This is where he takes the top off the defense, and you see him and Dylan Royal hook up in the deep ball game. I think he's your leading receiver. Listen, I'm going to go on a limb here. 2 receiving touchdowns for Ja'Cory Barney tomorrow in Bloomington. Who's the leading tackler for Nebraska tomorrow?
I don't. So I've been on John Bullock for I think 3 weeks now.
I think so too.
Yeah. And that's because Nebraska's playing teams that primarily run it between the tackles. That's not what Indiana's not going to be able to do that. They're not going to do that. So it's probably going to be somebody in the secondary. And I think this is another Gifford game. I think Isaac Gifford is the guy.
If we're talking about Emmett Johnson on Monday as far as the offense, I think Sierra Wright's a guy that we're going to be talking about on defense for Nebraska on Monday. I don't think he's your leading tackler, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's a guy whose name gets called a ton on Saturday for all the right reasons. But I'm with you. I think it's somebody in the secondary. I'm going to go with Buford. I think Buford's going to be a guy that they're going to try to exploit, and that may not be the best idea.
Yeah.
So give me Mario Buford as the leading tackler. Over under 1.5 field goals made by Nebraska.
I'm going under. I think it's one tops. I mean, just from what we've seen this season, I mean, has Nebraska made 2 field goals in a game yet this year? I don't think
One time.
once.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that they're going to attempt more than 2. So, and look, you can't trust Nebraska to be better than 50% on field goals. So,
Your former mention there is why I'm going under as well. I don't think Nebraska's offense is going to have to attempt too many field goals in this game. I don't necessarily that means that Nebraska necessarily scores 31 points. I just don't think that they're going to settle for them, and that's something that this coaching staff has kind of shown you over the last couple of weeks. Now we'll see if it looks like Tristan Ovano's even available or healthy to be out there. I don't think that's going to be the case either, and that's going to play a big factor in that. But I'm going to go with one total as well. Over under 218 passing yards for Dylan Raiola.
I'm going to say over because I think there's some big plays in there. Like I said, I think Nair can get down the field, especially in the middle of the field. And I think Thomas Fidone is going to play a factor as well.
Ooh.
You've heard Matt Rule talk about him in press conferences and things and say, like, people are asking, well, why don't we get this guy 6 touches? Why don't we get Fidone 6? I think they're making a concentrated effort. You saw, I think it was first series against Rutgers. One of the first plays they ran was a tight end screen to Thomas Fidone. They just want to get the ball in his hands. So I think the passing number is somewhere between 230 and 250 for Raiola.
Yeah, and you don't get the Ja'Cory Barney 2 big time touchdowns without probably over 218 yards.
Yep.
So for that reason, I have to take the over as well. Final score prediction for Saturday.
The wrong team's favored. I told you early in the week, I'm more confident in Nebraska winning this game than I was in them beating Purdue because I feel like Purdue's been a bad spot for this program. It's just a place that Nebraska seasons go to die. They overcame that. I feel very confident about this game. I don't think Indiana has the horses to run with Nebraska. Nebraska is the more talented team. I think Nebraska has the right mindset and the right culture going into this spot on the road to get the victory. And I think it's by double digits. Nebraska 28, Indiana 16.
For every sentiment you just echoed, I'm going to double down on. I think Nebraska wins 27. No, because that means that, I guess they could miss an extra point. Yeah, so 27-16. I think Kurt Cignetti goes for two-point conversions and tries to get some momentum. I don't think it's going to matter. I think Nebraska pulls away specifically because of what they're able to do on defense and downfield passing. If you missed our opening segment and our predictions tonight, check it out. SoundCloud.com/afterhours1620. It was brought to you by our friend Amber Best with Berkshire Hathaway Real Estate. If you're looking to get your house off the market and the real estate agent you're working with isn't getting it done, or maybe you're trying to do it yourself and not having success, Amber Best is the best in the metro area. Head over to Amber Best, that's BESS.com, and work with the best today. We'll be right back. Catch up with Mark Heath Preston, the head coach of Bellevue men's soccer, here on the other side of the break. We come back 1620 The Zone.
Hey, everybody, it's John Schreiner here for Jerry Ryan Clothing and Sportswear. We've hit the halfway point of the football season, and that means basketball season is just around the corner. You got all your football gear. Now you got to get in there, get your basketball gear. Whether you're blue Nebraska, red Nebraska, doesn't matter. They got you covered in all the great brands. Mizzen and Maine, Johnny O, Peter Millar, whatever you need, they got it. You're going to look the best when you go and sit down in your seat in section 110 in whatever building you go to watch major college basketball. Get down to 78th and Dodge. Get yourself some of the best sports gear in the metro, and then get yourself a nice suit for after the game when you have those big events. It's Jerry Ryan Clothing and Sportswear, 78th and Dodge. They've been dressed in Omaha for over 50 years.
Your Omaha area forecast, presented by Bellevue Berry and Pumpkin Ranch, from the KETV Newswatch 7 Weather Center on 1620 The Zone.
After spending another summer on your deck dealing with the harsh sunshine, hot temperatures, and all-around unpleasantness, maybe it's time to start thinking about upgrading your deck to something a little finer with Forsman's Finest Decks. Forsman's Finest Decks is pretty good at building covered decks or patios to give you more shade for cookouts, hangouts, or even enjoying a game on TV. Start by booking your new deck for the spring of 2025. Family-owned Forsman's Finest Decks are the finest decks you can find. Find Forsman's Finest Decks at forsmansfinest.com.
It's football season. Stop by Jerry Ryan Clothing and Sportswear on 78th and Dodge for your Peter Millar and Johnny O Husker polos, quarter zips, and vests. Before you know it, basketball season will be in full swing, so stop by and grab your Blue Jay gear too. And as always, you can get a free tailor fitting with John, Dan, Jake, Deanne, and Monier the tailor. Jerry Ryan, dressing Omaha for more than 50 years.
At Jerry Ryan's, we bring out the best in you.
You're listening to After Hours with Jimmy Allen on 1620 The Zone.
Welcome back inside the After Hours Lounge on a Tuesday night here on 1620 The Zone, brought to you by Bellevue University. If you want to keep up to date on all things Bellevue Athletics, download the BU Bruins app to your smartphone tonight. Speaking of those Bruins, the head soccer coach of the men's team, Markeith Preston, now joins us here on After Hours. Coach, thanks for being here. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, happy to be here.
You guys are absolutely rolling right now. 11-1-2 on the season. Unfortunately, you are coming off that one loss to Missouri Valley just on Wednesday. What has been rolling for this team at this point in the season?
Probably not necessarily just this season, but dating back to the end of last season and going to the spring. These boys have been together for a while now, so the performances have been there. I guess you could say the culture's been there from the guys, and I guess that's showing in this early part of the season so far.
What does the remainder of this season look like for you guys? Obviously, coming off that one loss, you guys have Jamestown on Saturday at home, and then you have a game against Viterbo before taking on the number 2 team in the country. What does preparation for that Oklahoma Wesleyan game look like?
We're not even thinking about that right now. All that matters is tomorrow's game, and that's kind of been the mindset all through the season. Is not worrying about what's gone on later down the season. It's just what's going to go on next.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, just trying to not get too far ahead of ourselves. I mean, I'm sure everyone's aware of what's around the corner with that game, and then with conference tournament, and obviously hopefully beyond. But I think when you focus on that sort of stuff, you lose track of what's right in front of you. We
caught up with Trish Sedlick earlier in the week, and the Jamestown situation is a little unique, right? In the fact that they leave the GPAC and join the North Star essentially out of necessity. What has it been like to have a team that you necessarily haven't seen pretty regularly show up regularly on your schedule now?
I mean, we are us women's soccer. I think maybe golf. I'm not sure. We're all unaffiliated in our conference. So I've been a head coach for 9 years, and for 9 years I've had no conference. So having random teams show up on our schedule is no surprise to us. I mean, if anything, we know Jamestown very well from being in our conference previously. So it's honestly not a big deal. You know, we're used to traveling. We're used to playing teams we don't know. So.
You guys obviously play your home games at Papillion Landing. What is the benefit of being able to have that beautiful venue out there, and how has the Bellevue crowd kind of responded to this team and the home games being far from campus?
Sorry, you put me on the spot there. That's a really good.
Sorry.
No,
Yeah.
Benefit when we are there for the 90 minutes. It's a really nice place to play, and the players that have played at Papillion Landing throughout the years have had some great experiences there. I guess that's what I will say to that.
Sure. Who are some of the guys on the team this year that maybe before the season started you thought had some growing to do that have kind of hit that mark and are where you would like them to be at this point in the season that maybe weren't there at the beginning of the year?
Yeah, of course. I think a lot of players are performing how we expect them to perform, and even if they don't play well, they're giving us absolutely everything. I think a comment on young Cohen, who's last year, who's kind of got himself in the team and has just improved slightly every single game. I think also Kai Nicholson, who's a transfer kid from the Osho, has again improved every game, and then I guess the one player who's actually with us in the spring, trained with us, and that has really caught fire is Eddie, that we signed, Omaha South kid we signed from Iowa Western. He's scored some really good goals. I think something that doesn't show up in the stats is how many penalties and PKs he's won. But you know, he's been a real threat and a real danger.
Jeremiah is just a freshman, and he co-leads this team in goals scored. What have you seen out of him so early that stands out maybe a little bit for a guy that is young but has had some success at this level?
Jerry's a good player. I've obviously known him for a while. You know, he's really good in the box. I think the game against Missouri Valley the other day, you know, probably the best team we've played so far, probably the best team he's ever played. And so it's just, you know, every game, it's just you know, he's gone from playing against high school kids to, you know, a 220-pound Argentinian centre back. You know, it's just different. So every game he improves. Every game, you know, he's got something different to go up against. You know, and the longer he plays with us, the better it'll be for him.
We mentioned he's the co-leading scorer right along senior Matthias Daniel Dorn. Yep. What has his senior leadership meant to this team this far into the season?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing we always get from Matty is hard work and desire. I know Matty hasn't been on the score sheet recently, but he's always involved in some of the goals that we score, whether it's the assist to the assist or winning the ball back or something along those lines. So, but yeah, Matty's vital. His work rate, his mentality is vital to us.
Talk to us about your goalkeepers. You've played 3 so far this season, and 2 of them being freshmen and sparing time. What has been so good about this defense and the guys in the goal?
Have we played 3 goalkeepers?
According to the stat sheet.
Don't believe everything you read.
I
will mention the goalkeepers though. Tariq, obviously this is last year with us. We have some really good young goalkeepers. I say Caden Simpson this is his 2nd year with us. But you know, it's a terrible pun, but I think the future is in safe hands.
Nice.
Guys that we have. Of course, you know, we're going to want to strengthen and make sure we have good competition. But, you know, when Tariq leaves, of course, he'll be sadly missed. But we do have some guys that we feel can, with experience, you know, fill that void.
This feels like this was a Bill Mullins error. I'm just going to throw it out there. Jackson Staples is the 3rd goalkeeper that was listed on the stat sheet. Is he somebody that's been in the box at all for you guys?
I don't think he's played, but
okay, maybe
he's jumped in for a little bit. I don't think he has, but Jackson's a great kid, and he's a really good goalkeeper. And he's come out of a really good team in Kansas City. He lives in Missouri as a freshman this year, and you know, he's come in as a you know, I have 4 goalkeepers, and he's been fantastic. Yeah.
Back to Tariq for just a minute. I mean, what does he bring from a defensive standpoint, like whether it be communication or just knowledge of the game that helps the guys in front of him, not necessarily just in the box, but the defense as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, someone like him, he's a COVID kid, so he's played 5 years.
Mm.
So I mean, what he has over, the other goalkeepers right now, he's got 100 games of college. So obviously that experience brings a wealth of knowledge and different moments and situations he's been in.
We're catching up with Markeith Preston, the head coach of the men's soccer team at Bellevue University here on After Hours at 1620 The Zone. Coach, how does recruiting work in season for you personally, and when does that kind of ramp up after the season?
Yeah, I mean, it really is quite hectic right now, to be honest with you. We've had some really good local players on campus, one yesterday actually, and then obviously the position we're in right now, which is, statistically speaking, we're obviously a ranked team. We've won some games, so naturally the interest in our program has been a lot recently, and obviously we're fully aware that we have some players that are leaving this year, graduating, and we've got players that need replaced. So a combination between looking at the players that we have that can fill the spots that the guys leave, and look at some of the local players and some transfer players that we know can come in and hopefully improve us.
When you have that kind of attention on the program, blessing or curse at this time of the year?
Always a blessing. Always a blessing. never turn this sort of stuff down. You work so hard to try and be in this position. The most important thing is you try and stay in this position. You keep giving the same effort to stay here and hopefully take another little step forward.
You mentioned being a nationally ranked team, and obviously that comes with the hunter versus hunted mentality. When you guys are number 5 in the country, is it difficult at all to try to keep the guys focused and maybe not believe too much in the success they had?
No, it's not. They've been great. Not at all. They're a wonderful group of guys, and I think you look back 3 years ago, some of these players came in. We weren't great. We only just made the conference tournament. We only just made nationals. But of course, as tale as old as time, it's a process, and sometimes you have to start at the bottom and work your way up. And maybe this is up, or maybe we've still got a little bit more to go. But the important thing is when you get to a position like this, is doing your best to stay there.
1 month and 3 days from that NAIA tournament, Coach. Good luck with the remainder of the season. We greatly appreciate your time today. And again, Markeith Preston, the head coach of the men's soccer team at Bellevue University, joins us here. 11-1-2 on the season. If you haven't had a chance, get out to Papillion Landing. The next 2 games are this Saturday, the 19th, and Tuesday, the 22nd, both at 3:30. Stop out, support the Bruins, cheer them on as they round out their season, hopefully in a winning fashion. Coach, we appreciate it. We'll catch up with you, hopefully after you're winning a national championship.
War about Saturday first. We'll see what happens.
That's Markeith Preston, head coach of the Bellevue University men's soccer team. If you missed this segment tonight, check it out at soundcloud.com/afterhours1620 or wherever you may find your podcast at. It was brought to you by Controlled Heating and Air. Before cold outside, get the maintenance done on your HVAC unit and be prepared so you're not freezing this winter. Head over to controlledcomfort.com, set up a maintenance appointment, and they'll check out your AC unit to make sure the summer and spring didn't take too much of a toll on that as well. We'll be right back with Brian Munson from Husker Online on 3 when we come back here on 1620 The Zone.
Cunningham's Pub and Grill, now open in Blackstone. Signature smoked wings, one-of-a-kind sandwiches, wraps, burgers, and more. Fill your glass with craft beer or one of our house-made cocktails right on tap. Whether it's lunch with the office or watching the game with friends, come experience a great time. Keep up with us online for delicious daily food and drink specials and find your flavor at Cunningham's, locally owned and operated in Old Mill and 38th and Farnham in Blackstone.
You're counting on your team to win, so why not prove it? By placing your bets at Warhorse Sportsbook, their win is your win. Put your money where your mouth is on nearly every sporting event. Use the Warhorse app to check odds and build your bets before placing your wagers in person at Warhorse Casino, including live in-game betting. No bets, no glory. Wagers may only be placed on Nebraska-based teams when played outside the state of Nebraska. Must be 21 or older to gamble. Gambling problem? Call 1-833-BET-OVER.
Welcome back to the After Hours Lounge on a Friday night here on 1620 The Zone, brought to you by Bellevue University. If you want to keep up to date on all things Bellevue athletics, download the BU Bruins app to your smartphone tonight. Joining us over the phone now is Brian Munson from Husker Online and On3. B. Muntz, good evening, sir. How are you?
What's up, guys?
It's a little chilly up here in Omaha, but the temperature on Saturday in Bloomington is a little favorable. If it is a little bit colder and a little bit of a chill sets in, who do you think that favors better on Saturday, Nebraska or Indiana?
That's a good question.
I know you're a man of the weather.
As we were talking about offline, my blood is thinned out a little bit from being down here for 25 years. So I'm not sure if there's a real distinct advantage there for anyone. I'm assuming that, though, it might give a slight advantage to Indiana, and here's why. Dylan's probably a person that has felt the cold, felt the chill, know what it's like in Nebraska, during those months or whatever, but has he been out there and played a game in it? Has he had a chance to go through keeping his hands warm, staying mentally sharp, the little bit of discipline that it takes to make sure that, and keep that leadership edge about him. I mean, this is going to push him into some uncharted waters, I would say, a little bit, to where he's making sure that everybody else around him is staying sharp, that there's nothing else about the weather and the chills that are kind of playing into, or being a bigger part of the game than any other game. So maybe it might give Indiana, a little bit of advantage. I also say that because obviously Nebraska is on the road, although I don't I don't think that, despite Indiana selling that game out, that there's like a huge advantage for 52,000 people, there in Bloomington. Like, I think Nebraska is going to have some portion of that stadium is going to be red versus crimson, right? So I think that's going to still kind of even out and play out the way it typically would. But I think obviously being on the road, and Nebraska's only other road game was Purdue. They didn't score any points in the first half. Those are the kind of things that when you put them together, they do have the potential to kind of snowball and be in your face because you don't know another way around it. So that's what I'm trying to say there. It might be a little bit of an advantage to Indiana.
Weather issues aside, how is this game going to affect Nebraska's recruiting effort? I mean, I know they're on the road, but Nebraska's had some good success in the past with players coming out of that Indianapolis, Indiana region. Is there anything you're hearing around the recruiting effort surrounding this game?
Not specifically, but I mean, it's a great point because Nebraska has clearly changed the way that they're attacking recruiting, right? Like when Rule got there in 2022, the hiring of McGuire and bringing in Dr. My mind went blank. The gal from the UIL down here in Texas, Miller. So she,
Julie.
all these folks had basically come to Nebraska with the hopes of kind of, busting down the doors and going and getting all those Texas recruits. And I kind of mentioned this morning in 3 and Out. And so then in Tunnel Talk, excuse me, but they've had to kind of revamp everything that they've done recruiting wise because they could get players in Texas. They got Prince Will and they've turned a couple other players kind of, away that they could have gotten, but they also couldn't really get like those difference makers, the guys that were going to elevate your program. So then what Nebraska has done is it's really genius. I mean, they turned away and said, okay, there are players in this radius. There are players in the Big Ten footprint from here to Philadelphia, all the way out to New Jersey that we know that we can get. And so I do feel like there is some significance, on Saturday to where Nebraska needs to look better in the Big Ten footprint. They didn't look great the other time that they were in Indiana either this season. So they need to go out there and look a little bit more polished. They need to match up a little bit more performance-wise with where the media has kind of been talking about Nebraska leading up to the Illinois game. And I think also the hype that maybe even potentially is going a little bit beyond Indiana, looking at Ohio State next week. So it's like you do have a definite need to kind of go in on Saturday a little bit more buttoned up, be a little bit more effective out the gate, put together a strong performance. And then I think you can go back out then and start to really get after recruiting. I think 2026 guys and 2027 guys, that whole area, and I'm going to kind of just draw a circle, around. And I know, John, I'm kind of taking this thing for a walk, but I think you kind of then draw a little bit stronger of a circle as you push east into that footprint. And I know that Nebraska wants to be effective, as you kind of get going that way, because Indiana's kind of that end, that hairy edge of 500 miles, and it gets a little bit of a gray area. But I know that they want to be effective in Chicago. I know that they want to be effective in Indy. I know they want to be effective in St. Louis, and you're very much in that kind of radius there, and then you're on that big noon game, with Fox. So that's the other thing. When you turn it on and you've got 3 or 4 games, that's going to be the big game, of course, that Fox is going to have for the day. So yeah, it's a pretty big deal that Nebraska goes out there from a recruiting standpoint where they can stand behind it and say, here's what we did against this perfect record Indiana Hoosier team on Saturday.
That's a really interesting point about the TV slate. Like, obviously you talk to a ton of high school recruits. Does anybody ever bring up, hey, I watch more games in this time slate versus the other?
Oh man, I tell you what, nothing from a recruiting standpoint. I know I definitely heard, coaches complain about it because like the old Pac-12 would talk about like, hey, my kickoffs aren't until 9:00. Everybody is in bed by then, or, toasted, not paying attention to me or whatever. But not from like a recruiting standpoint, but I do have to think that there is probably some sort of a cutoff to like the relevant time slots that a recruit is going to say, I'm interested in these games here. And then when it gets kind of past that, I have my own little social agenda, right? Where I'm out doing my thing with my boys or whatever, or the family says this is time for us to get together because I play football on Friday nights. So we got to go do, the things as a family together. And that's going to happen on Friday, or they're on their own kind of little game thing. So maybe as a game visit, maybe they do have a chance to watch those later games. But I think those later games are very, very, very tough for those guys that are, basically just have practice the next day, video the next day after a game. They have to stay home, and then they want to get back and kind of watch those earlier games so they can go out and do their things with their buddies that night.
We heard Matt Rule say that they were this off week, which would normally be a big time recruiting week. They'd have all the coaches on the road. They're saving all their recruiting days for the second bye week. What do you think of that strategy, and what sense can we make out of it?
Well, I think it has a lot to do with the fact that you're having to find a replacement now for all the in-home visits that usually would take place in December, because those visits are now gone, right? So you don't have that ability to get into the home, and spend an evening with the recruit's family, have dinner with them, sit down, meet all the family, meet the friends, kind of this big production kind of thing. Nebraska actually was having those kinds of productions in the spring, like when they went to Millard North, right? They saw Newberry, they saw Vermoss, family, friends all showed up. They had the big picture. Jackson Carpenter, very similar deal at Lincoln Southwest. Mom shows up. They got outside. They took a picture with the coaching staff. So those were kind of an indicator, I think, or the trend beginning towards we're going to make these special kind of visits that we're taking to go spend some time with the recruits more of an event versus just kind of more of a casual brush by in the hallway. Hey, how you doing? I'm gonna go talk to your counselor. We're gonna go talk to whatever. Now that you can kind of sit there and talk to the recruits and do those things as the rules have changed, I feel like, the trend has been starting since the spring, and now you have to find that replacement kind of value visit that you're not going to have now from an in-home. You're going to replace that now on that second bye week, put those coaches back out there into your commitment schools, into your commitment gyms or homes or whatever it is that they're going to be able to do those weeks, and have that time to basically kind of have that last sync up before National Letter of Intent signing day in December.
When you look at guys like Jamarian Parker and you talk about what Connor Booth has been able to do up at Bishop Newman this year, do you think Nebraska is done recruiting the running back position for the next class?
I do. I know that a lot of people still kind of stare at Connor Booth and wonder if he's a running back. He's a running back. I mean, the dude is absolutely tearing it up, and I've shared it before, and I'll say it again. I think when he shut down his recruiting in the way that he shut it down, effectively kind of killed any type of additional analysis and reevaluating of his ranking and all that good stuff. He had plenty of pressure to get out and go to do other camps, and basically had other offers from other Big Ten schools, hung out there in front of his nose, as a carrot on a stick to say, if you come to this camp, you're going to get this offer. And he knew where he wanted to go. He had the total product. He wanted to play both sports at Nebraska. So I think that people have to kind of get around maybe what their thoughts are with Connor Booth. I mean, he's having an exceptional season. I know he plays C2 ball. It's not unheard of that we've seen Division I players come out of C2, and obviously, Bishop Newman is one of those top programs. But Jamarian, to me, like last week was just such a massive week for him. I mean, 271 yards rushing, over 10 yards, rushing per pop, 2 touchdowns. I think his average is like right at about 9 yards or something like that. He's definitely kind of that home run threat, in the class. I think Nebraska fans were kind of hoping, the guy that you missed on in Kawan Lacey last year that went to Missouri. Parker is really that guy to me. And I think that he also plays very well into the passing game, just like Lacey would have for Nebraska. And I think obviously Booth too, he's done it as well. He can catch those passes too. So I think Nebraska has found a really nice complement of 2 guys that can play the running back position. They're similar-ish, but they're different enough to where I think you're can consider that you've got really nice diversity in the class between those guys and what they can add to the room.
Sticking with the high school ranks a little bit of gear change here. We've seen some things here in Nebraska recently where Lincoln High chose not to play the second half of their game, trailing 63-0 to Millard South. We've seen Benson have to cancel the last 2 games of their football season due to lack of participation. Just came out this morning that Grand Island, a Class A school, is not going to have a varsity girls basketball team this year. Like, from your viewpoint, what is happening in high school sports that is causing these types of things where we have low participation and teams continuously having to modify or cancel or bow out of entire seasons?
You know, I that's a really tough question, John, because I feel like there's different factors for every situation. Being that I live in Dallas, I can also throw in that it's not exclusive to Nebraska. There are other reasons, you know, in all other places about why things, you know, don't happen, where you've got people that are that are leaving schools because they're joining other high schools, or leaving their high school to go play football at another high school. Let's just go ahead and just say that there is an element of that happening there in the state, right? And I think it's depleting, or not. It's basically reducing the balance of talent and the numbers in which you can kind of put a team out there on the field. Because if you have those guys that are kind of striving for a little bit more of an excellence, or having a little bit more success, and they're joining other programs from around the Metroplex, I think that they're taking advantage of what they can kind of do at the moment. I don't know what they're going to do about that. I think that's really what kind of says, you know, what it says to me about, you know, what happened against Millard South and what's happened so far at Omaha Bryan. With Grand Island, I know the basketball season is coming up, but to kind of throw in the towel based on how the turnout was so far, it almost sounds like to me like you just have a group of individuals there that just are not seeing the bigger picture in the athletic side of what it could mean to not just participate now in high school, you know, to where you could potentially, you know, take your experiences and let it drive you somewhere else. It doesn't have to mean that you get to go on to play college basketball. You're going to draw other things from basically your athletic, you know, kind of career in high school. But I know down here too, you know, like there are high schools that struggle to field competitive varsity teams because the club game is really where, you know, things have kind of shifted to, like particularly girls soccer. That is really a sport down here. Like, and you see a monster high school like Plano West, and every one of their girls, however, is playing for, you know, an FC Dallas kind of team. They don't need to go play varsity soccer to get noticed by the colleges, because all the colleges recruit the clubs. And it's kind of similar-ish down here too with baseball, to where varsity baseball is kind of a sport that's also not getting a lot of attention. Although varsity baseball, I would argue, you really need that for the MLB scouts, because I think the MLB scouts are really going to be the ones that'll be at your high school baseball games. So I think that there's a number of factors, but I think that the transfer policy is something that needs to be reviewed. At Grand Island, man, when I saw that news and when Robin retweeted that, I was astonished. I forwarded it right back out to my buddy Scott Steinberg out there in Kearney, who's a soccer coach and has been a basketball coach out there for a number of years. And I'm flabbergasted by that news, to where they already threw the talent on that season. So I think there's going to be some really tough examination and vetting of what's kind of going on in all those sports, and how to kind of drive up participation. And maybe stuff is moving too. Heck, you know, maybe it's now field hockey, or maybe it's lacrosse. Maybe they got to pull some other sport together to kind of do all that stuff too.
We're catching up with Brian Munster from Husker Online on 3 here on After Hours. B, we'll get you out of here on this. When we talk about the outcome of Saturday, how important is Saturday's game for the mental state of Nebraska football?
I think it's huge. I think Nebraska is they know that they are a better team than what they have shown. They haven't played a game 4 quarters yet. They haven't started out well on the road yet. You know, they've been non-existent in the second half at home. They know that they have a tremendous defense, and I think that they know that they can score points on offense, and they have plenty of talent over there. I think that they just feel like that there's one part of the game, whether it's special teams or this play or this play, that kind of lets them down in critical moments, and it always makes things a struggle. I think that they need to feel like they can go out and play a complete game, particularly because you do have that very difficult game to Columbus coming right at you on the calendar. So this is really that kind of game to where you can feel really, really good about, going into that last week of practices before you go play the Buckeyes, or you can say, man, we are just a little bit further away than what we gave ourselves, kind of credit for earlier on. And we were believing in ourselves a little bit too much. We have a lot of work to do still. So, and it's a tough last half of the season, guys. I mean, you look at that,
sure.
you look at those last 6 games.
Yep.
If you can tell me 3 that they just will be favored in, obviously you already don't have the Indiana game. So go ahead and pick out 3 on the last 5. It's not easy to do. So I think 2 and 4, kind of looking at it just from like a logical perspective, it seems pretty reasonable. But if they can win 3 of the last 6 and get to 8 wins, I think everybody will be really, really happy with that.
Score prediction for Saturday?
I still like Nebraska, guys. I hate to sound like a homer. I think that there's like a 3.4 point win. I kind of was talking to Sipple about this yesterday while he was out driving around. I'm going to go like 23-17, 24-20, something in there. It's going to be like, somewhere like low side 37 to 43 points is like the total score. I think you got to get to like 21-23 to win it. And that's what I think you need to do on Saturday.
That's Brian Munson from Husker Online. You can follow all of his work at Brian Munson _ on Twitter as well. Munson, we appreciate it. We'll catch up with you next week.
Later, boys. See ya.
If you missed Brian's segment tonight, check it out at soundcloud.com/afterhours1620. It was brought to you by Cunningham's Pub. It is a Friday night, but that means that football is on the next 2 days. All you got to do is stop by Cunningham's Pub. They're going to have all the college games on tomorrow. On Sunday, they're going to have their exclusive brunch menu and the NFL Sunday ticket, so you'll be able to catch your favorite team and game at Cunningham's Pub. Stop by tonight, grab dinner, and grab drinks. We'll be right back, finding out what's trending on social media. We come back here on 1620 The Zone. Hey, everybody, it's Jimmy Allen here for Forsman's Finest Decks. Listen, Travis and crew are booked out through the rest of the year, but if you want to have your dream deck built in the spring, you could still head over to forsmansfinest.com, work with Travis and the crew. They're going to build you a deck, put a cover on it, add that something your house has been missing so you can have your dream outdoor experience in 2025. Head over to Forsman's Finest Decks by heading to forsmansfinest.com tonight, work with Travis and the crew, and get your dreamed outdoor space next year. Forsman's Finest Decks, building the finest decks in Omaha.
The dream of playing the sport you love may be closer than you think. The Bellevue University Athletic Department proudly sports the best scholarship funding among NAIA programs in the state. To compete with the best, we need to recruit the best. All incoming freshmen earn a $5,000 scholarship when they enroll at Bellevue University. Learn more by looking us up at bubruins.com and reach out to your future coach today.
leaves are on the ground and the footballs are in the air. That means it's time for a fall tune-up. Locally owned and operated with 18-month same-as-cash financing available, Controlled Comfort is your one-stop shop for all your HVAC needs. With over 350 5-star Google reviews, Controlled Comfort is the cream of the crop. Head over to ControlledComfort.com for all your HVAC needs today.
Controlled Comfort keeps it under control. Yeah.
Are you dreaming of your business dominating local Google searches, drawing in customers effortlessly? Look no further. I'm Courtney, the Google gal from Pixel Fire Marketing. Need assistance with your Google business profile? From verification to getting more reviews, fixing maps to tackling annoying Google calls? I've got you covered. Your profile sets you apart and ensures you're the top choice for local customers. Visit fixmygbp.com for our $297 special offer. Visit fixmygbp.com for more details.
Welcome back to the After Hours Lounge on a Friday night here, brought to you by Bellevue University. Head over to bellevue.edu. You could register for classes for the winter, become a Bruin as early as December. John Schreiner, Jimmy Allen, Dan Campen here with you on a Friday night. It is time for the social media soundbite. We got some very interesting and breaking news earlier today, and I don't think anybody saw this coming just a few days away from the start of college basketball. But Tony Bennett, the head coach at Virginia, took to the podium and announced his retirement today. And here's a little bit of that audio.
And I've been here for 15 years as the head coach. And I thought it would be a little longer, to be honest, but that's been on loan. It wasn't mine to keep. This position has been on loan, and it's time for me to, excuse me, I knew that would happen. It's time for me to give it back. But to give it back, to gain what I can't lose, to be a better husband. I love Laurel with all my heart, and we're going to find out if you love me with all your heart, because I'm going to be around a lot more. To be a better dad to my daughter Anna and my son Eli. My parents are both 81 years old, and I don't want to live with any regrets.
That's the head coach of Virginia, Tony Bennett, who steps away from Cavaliers basketball today. Shocking that this information comes out when it does, obviously just a few days away from tip-off. But we caught up with Steve Murfeld, Creighton's director of development, earlier on the Roll Jays podcast today, and asked him about this. And he just talked about the difficulty of certain programs, the way they conduct business. And Virginia is very unique in the way they run their basketball program. It's talked about ad nauseum when we get to March. But it's very reliant on getting players to commit and getting them in the process and staying in the system and keeping your team old. And it's becoming more and more difficult to do that. And it feels like that's a lot of the reason Tony Bennett's walking away today.
Yeah, it's very shocking. And then you read or listen to some of his comments. And the one that sticks out to me is, I don't think I'm equipped in this new way to coach. And it's a disservice if you keep doing that. That's NIL, right? Like that's what that's
and
about.
The transfer portal. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. We're seeing it at all levels of collegiate sports, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, whatever it is. There's a phase shift happening in college athletics where there's coaches who are used to doing things the old way and are having a real hard time adjusting to life on the other side of NIL, right?
And coaches are creatures of habits to the degree. I mean, not to make this all about Creighton, but I mean, when Greg McDermott gets done with the games, he stays up till 2, 3, 4 in the morning watching film on the next team. That's just one facet of his job. That's not including recruiting. That's not including development. That's not including having to deal with the NIL portion of things. And obviously Bruce Rasmussen, those guys at the Birds Cage do a great job there. But to be able to have to be able to function at that high of a level, and obviously they get compensated very well for it, but on top of that, added basically a whole nother portion to your job, or two portions. We talk about NIL and the transfer portal that weren't there before. That's a really big adjustment. And especially for somebody like Tony Bennett, who is as old as he is, having to make those changes, it's probably very difficult. Especially, I mean, he hasn't just been a head coach for 15 years. He's only been a head coach at Virginia for 15 years. And think about the repetition and how much continuity and consistency you have in that program. And then just throw a wrench into it. It makes it almost impossible to navigate without completely changing your entire philosophy.
Well, you hit on it as well, that the Virginia system is built on a slow tempo and defensive like intensity, right?
Yeah.
And those things, like, you're not going to win a lot of games if you're not like experienced and locked in and bought in. You need all three of those things in spades to be good at that style of basketball. Like, you can stay close with a lot. If you're just kind of like mediocre and you play that way, you're going to keep a lot of games close. But to win, and to win at the national championship level like they have, you have to be absolutely locked in. And so when you have a situation where players want to leave if they can get more money, and they're able to, and we shouldn't blame them for that, right? Like, you and I would do the same thing.
Yep.
If there was another show that said, "Hey, Jimmy, we're going to pay you 6 figures to come and do a show on our station," like, peace out, John. See you later. You know what I mean?
I would not do that to you. Don't put those words in my mouth. I wouldn't even say peace out. I just leave.
But so his style, the way he wants his team to play, gets tougher and tougher to coach.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not interested in changing the way you want to coach, then you have two options. Like, you can stick with it and try to make it work, or you can say, "Look, I've had a good career. I've won a national title, and I've made a lot of money to the point where I don't need to make money anymore."
I've lost
right?
to a 16 seed. That's neither here nor there, but go ahead.
But that's the other thing, is coaching salaries are at the point where guys who've been at it for a long time, and
honestly, I think that's got a lot to do with it too. Is
made their money, man. Like,
you don't
have to work anymore.
Not even that. I don't even think it's that they don't have to work anymore, because I think it like Nick Saban isn't sticking around to do College Game Day because he's sick of coaching. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, it's not the fact that they don't want to do it anymore. It's the fact that they look at their bank account and they look at the headache that they're going to have to deal with and completely change a lot of their philosophies and say, that dollar amount dictates that I don't have to do this. And I think that's why you're seeing Jay Wright and Mike Krzyzewski and the Tony Bennett's of the world walk away, because it's a matter of need versus want to. And the need is not there because of the salaries they've been able to maintain on top of winning national championships and having a ton of success. And that's why I think you're seeing the top of the top walk away now versus, it being this mass exodus out of coaching.
Yeah, but with him specifically, it was shocking because, like, he was just
we're 19 days away from tip-off.
He was just talking at ACC Media Days,
Yeah.
like just what, a week ago?
You got to wonder how much that was like, I don't really want to do this crap next year. Hey, that was the social media soundbite tonight. If you missed it, check it out at soundcloud.com/afterhours1620. It was brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing. If your business needs help with social media marketing, website design, or online advertising, pixelfiremarketing.com is here to help. Check out pixelfiremarketing.com if your business could benefit from igniting its social media presence online today. We'll be right back, giving you a buy or sell on the other side of the break on 1620 The Zone. Hey, everybody, it's Jimmy Allen here for AX Plumbing. They are locally owned and operated right here out in Papillion. And if you want to work with a local plumber that can be trusted, you're going to be able to find them after the work is done, answer any questions you may have. Check out axpservice.com. Let Nick and his crew give you the peace of mind about your plumbing issues at your home or your business, and they will leave either cleaner than they found it. Check out axpservice.com for more details today.
After spending another summer on your deck dealing with the harsh sunshine, hot temperatures, and all around unpleasantness, maybe it's time to start thinking about upgrading your deck to something a little finer with Forsman's Finest Decks. Forsman's Finest Decks is pretty good at building covered decks or patios to give you more shade for cookouts, hangouts, or even enjoying a game on TV. Start by booking your new deck for the spring of 2025. Family-owned Forsman's Finest Decks are the finest decks you can find. Find Forsman's Finest Decks at forsmansfinest.com.
Are you looking to be part of a winning tradition? The Bellevue University Bruins could be the right fit for you. Whether on the court or on the field, track or course, our student athletes strive and succeed. This year, Bellevue teams and individuals have combined to win 11 conference championships, with 8 teams qualifying for their national tournaments. Plus, nearly 50 student athletes were also named to all conference teams. Find out more about our tradition of excellence at BUBruins.com.
KOZ and Bellevue, Omaha, Council Bluffs. This is 1620, The Zone.
Top of the second hour here on 1620 The Zone, brought to you by Pyramid Contractors. If you need your windows, gutters, roof, or siding replaced, Pyramid Contractors has been #1 in Omaha for over a decade for a reason. Head over to pyramidroof.com and book a free estimate with Kyle and the team today. Jimmy Allen, John Schreiner with you here. We're going to do buy or sell. Dan Campion has been put in his timeout room. He is not allowed to participate tonight, so it'll be just John and I asking the question. John, I'll go ahead and get us started off. When you look at the landscape of the New York Jets right now, and obviously the addition of Davante Adams feels like it should be a big deal. They are 2-4 on the season and have hit a 3-game skid. Buy or sell? We're not even talking playoffs. Buy or sell that the Jets, with the addition of Devontae Adams, can finish 500 on the season?
I need to look at their schedule.
It's pretty favorable. I'll run it by you. So I mean, listen, they just lost a really close game to the Bills, 23-20 this past weekend. They have to go on a 2-game road trip here at Steelers, at Patriots, Texans at home, at Cardinals, and this is where it gets a little bit easier. They get the Colts, Seahawks, Dolphins, Jaguars, Rams in a 5-game stretch before they have to go back to Buffalo, and then they finish out at home against Miami. So Steelers, Patriots, Colts, Dolphins, Jaguars, all on the schedule.
Yeah, they're in that range, right? Like I'm gonna sell because I think they're like an 8-9 team.
Yeah, obviously you can't finish 500 anymore.
Yeah, I think they're going to be an 8-9 team. Look, I don't like the culture of the team. Like we've seen the head coach get fired, the offensive coordinator's demoted. We've seen disagreements and loud arguments on the sidelines. Is everybody getting along? It doesn't look like everything is.
Doesn't feel great. Yeah.
So just based on that alone, like when that starts happening to teams, bad things usually follow. And this is a team that's now lost 3 one-score games in a row, right? And what do we talk about with Nebraska all the time? Culture is the problem. Belief and attitude is the problem in those one-score games. The history, all those negative thoughts start coming back in. I just think there's too much negativity around this team. I'm going to put them at 8-9. I sell that they can finish 500.
I sell as well, and I think they finished way worse than 8-9. Those games that I outlined as easy games don't feel like they're going to be layups for this Jets team, even though they were competitive with the Bills. I just don't think Devontae Adams is going to fix their overall outlining problems, which is mainly their offensive line, despite the running game being as effective as it has this year. I don't know. Like I called it 2 years ago. I thought Aaron Rodgers was going to retire. I don't know if we see him next year, man. It just doesn't feel like this guy loves football anymore, and that's got to be a big deal, especially in a market like New York.
All right. I'm going to stay in the NFL with you. All signs point to Russell Wilson starting for the Steelers on Sunday Night Football.
Let Russ cook, baby. Right, Dan Campion? Dan's nodding in agreement.
Fields has guided Pittsburgh to a 4-2 record, but he hasn't looked great doing it. Buy or sell that we've seen the last of Fields as a starter in the Steel City?
Sell, because I think we've seen Justin Fields – the last of Justin Fields as a starter in the NFL. I don't think it's unique to Pittsburgh. I think there's enough on film that he is just not capable of being one of the best 32 quarterbacks in the world. Now, listen, guys have been able to cut out really nice careers for themselves being a backup, and with a name like Justin Fields, he's probably going to have a longer career than maybe his play on the field has shown. I know they're 4-2. That has a lot more to do with that defense than it does anything Justin Fields has done this season. Yep. I don't think either one of them are the starter in Pittsburgh next year. Like, I know they're both on 1-year deals, and it kind of feels like this is going to be a complete reset. And this was just hey, how do we get to next season type of moment? And maybe we strike gold. One of these guys works out. I don't think that's going to be the case. I don't think Mike Tomlin is very fond of either of them either, by the way. Yeah. And that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah. It feels like a bridge year for Pittsburgh. Does it not? I agree. I'm totally buying it.
You think Mike Tomlin's the coach next year?
Yeah, I do.
I do too.
I don't think Mike Tomlin's interested in coaching anywhere else.
I don't either. There's been a lot of people that are just like, this kind of feels like Mike Tomlin's last ride. I'm like, really? Because it kind of feels like a renaissance to me. Like, look how good of a coach I am. Look what I've been able to do with what you've given me.
Right. I don't think Fields, unless there's a Russell Wilson injury, I think Justin Fields stays as a starter or done.
I agree.
Editorial note from the producer: Justin Fields and Strawberry Fields forever.
All right, where are we going?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I was waiting for you to ask me the next one. We talked about it on Wednesday night. Dan Campion, you're supposed to be doing your job. We talked about it on Wednesday night. I mean, the highlight of the NFL weekend is obviously Chiefs at 49ers. Buy or sell that it's more important for San Francisco to dominate, not only win, but dominate this game than necessarily win it.
Yeah, I'll buy that. I think this game means more to San Francisco because, look, the Chiefs are undefeated and they've been crowned as the unquestioned best team in the league, despite all the changes, despite everything. And injuries. Like, the pieces change and the results stay the same. It just doesn't matter with Patrick Mahomes. So, yeah, I think there is more importance here for San Francisco. And I don't know that it's important that they necessarily dominate, but I think the win means a lot more to them.
I know that seems like a really weird question. We're talking about the 2-time Super Bowl champions, one of those wins, and 2 of the last 3 being over the 49ers. But there's a lot of bad vibes around the 49ers franchise right now. And with all the injuries that have piled up, it's easy to see why. They're only 3-3, and this was a team that was the odds-on betting favorite to win the NFC in a dominant fashion. And with the stretch of games you have coming up and a very favorable schedule ahead of you, it feels like getting this win and getting that head in the right direction to where the vibes feel better. And obviously, a dominant win in the NFL is 10 points, right? Like, I'm not talking about blowing out the Chiefs by 30. But I do. And the interesting note is this game opened up as San Francisco as a half-point favorite. That line's jumped all the way up to 2 at this point.
I know
So it's it kind of feels like all the momentum is shifting in San Francisco's direction as well.
All right, I'm taking you back to college football now. Georgia was the favorite to win the title by nearly everybody at the outset of the season. Right?
Nearly. One of the 2 people in this conversation didn't feel that way.
Now they're facing what could potentially be their second loss in 3 games with the matchup against Texas. Texas is favored in that game. Buy or sell that Georgia could actually miss the college football playoff.
The FPI has Georgia as a 10.5-point underdog in this game. So it's not necessarily just Vegas. It's not all the Texas love. The numbers say that Georgia should lose this game and lose it pretty decisively as well. I said, if you remember back, my second ever Papillion Sanitation trash take of the night is that I thought Georgia would miss the college football playoff. And I still think that's the case. And I think it's more prevalent now. I didn't think Carson Beck was the best quarterback in college football coming into this season. I didn't think Carson Beck was a first rounder. Some people had him projected as the Heisman Trophy favorite before the season started. I didn't necessarily see it. I don't think he's really the problem, but I think that offense has a lot of questions.
Yeah, we talked to our SEC guy, you'll remember, and he said Carson Beck was going to be better this year than he was last. And that has not been the case.
Yeah. 15 touchdowns, 5 picks already for Carson Beck on the season with, obviously just the 6 games played. But the next 3 weeks for Georgia is really interesting in particular because obviously we talked about the Texas game. This game is in Austin. They get the Florida Gators in the biggest cocktail party on the planet in 2 weeks. And then they get Ole Miss on the road as well. We talked about this before the season started. This is not the most favorable schedule for Georgia at Kentucky, at Alabama, at Texas, at Ole Miss. They have their toughest games outside of this game against Tennessee, which follows the Ole Miss game, by the way, have all been on the road. And I think that plays a little bit of a part into it as well. But yeah, I think that Georgia's got a legit chance of losing 2 of the next 4 on top of the 1 loss that they already have to Alabama. And if that's the case, they're absolutely out.
Yeah, you're not getting in with 4 losses. So that's absolutely true.
With that being said, and my last question is about college football as well. When we talked before the season started, we talked about the SEC dominance and what that looks like and how many teams from the SEC could possibly get in. And now that we've seen a half of a season of college football, when you look at the top 5 right now, Texas and Georgia are there, but we just discussed it. We don't know if Georgia's long for that part of the rankings, but Alabama and LSU both in the top 10 as well. Buy or sell 3 teams from the SEC still getting the playoff?
Yeah, I think the 2 teams who are in the SEC title game are in for sure. And then I think there's probably going to be another 2-loss team in there. And so right now it looks to me like Texas and Alabama are your 2 who are going to be in the title game. And then look, Tennessee's got a loss. They have a tough schedule coming up as well.
Yeah, I think they're going to have another loss here very soon as well.
Tennessee might be that 2-loss team who ends up being the participation trophy participant in the college football playoff.
So Tennessee, like we just said, gets Alabama, and then you still have to play Georgia this year. They finish out the season at Vanderbilt. That doesn't look as easy as it did at one point in the schedule to round out the season. How much would that Vanderbilt team love the possibility of spoiling Tennessee to get to the college football playoff as well?
The little brother comes up and kicks him in the shins right at the end of the season. That would be absolute misery.
Got to be the cherry on the top of the last 25 seasons for Tennessee. Man. Yeah, absolutely. We're going to give you we referenced our Papillion Sanitation trash takes. We're going to give those to you on the other side of the break. We come back. If you missed Buy or Sell tonight, check it out at soundcloud.com/afterhours1620 or wherever you may find your podcast. That was brought to you by Controlled Comfort Heating and Air. Fall is here. That means you need to get the maintenance done on your HVAC unit so you can be prepared and not freezing with old man winter in your living room this fall. Head over to controlledcomfort.com. Set up a maintenance appointment to get peace of mind about your furnace. Make sure that the warm months didn't take a toll on your AC as well. We'll be right back with our trash takes here on 1620 The Zone.
Hey, everybody. John Schreiner here for Bob at Williams Law. Listen, if you've got a legal situation hanging around in your life that you're unsure about how you need to handle, whether that's a civil case or criminal charges that are coming against you, you need to get a hold of Bob Williams at Williams Law. He's going to give you a free, no obligation legal consultation. What does that mean? Well, it means he's going to sit you down, walk you through your rights, explain exactly how he would defend you and what the charges are that you are facing. There's no finer representation that you can get in the metro area. Call him at 402-522-6317 or check out WilliamsLawLLC.com today.
After Hours has been telling you for a while now that all you have to do is stop by 402 Barbecue and mention the show. And 402 Barbecue will give you a free soda with purchase. But did you know you can actually get the 402 Barbecue truck to come to you? That's right. The best barbecue in Omaha can be at your business or event. To find out when and where to get some real deal home cooking, lip smacking barbecue, call 402-618-8274 and reserve Omaha's best food truck today.
You're counting on your team to win, so why not prove it? By placing your bets at Warhorse Sportsbook, their win is your win. Put your money where your mouth is on nearly every sporting event. Use the Warhorse app to check odds and build your bets before placing your wagers in person at Warhorse Casino, including live in-game betting. No bets, no glory. Wagers may only be placed on Nebraska-based teams when played outside the state of Nebraska. Must be 21 or older to gamble. Gambling problem? Call 1-833-BET-OVER.
You're listening to After Hours with Jimmy Allen on 1620 The Zone.
$7:15 on a Friday night here on 1620 The Zone, brought to you by Pyramid Contractors. It's starting to get a little cold outside. You're starting to see a little bit of film develop behind your window. That's not supposed to happen. Don't go through another winter with bad windows. Head over to Pyramid Contractors at pyramidroof.com. Have your windows replaced by Kyle and the team this fall. John Schreiner, Jimmy Allen, Dan Campion with you here on a Friday night. It's time for our Papillion Sanitation trash takes of the night. What we'll do here is John and I will both give you a hot take. We'll put a poll up on Twitter. You will tell us who had the best take, and whoever gets the least amount of votes in our poll will have the worst and trashiest take of the night. John, I'm going to go ahead and get us start off, and this is something I mentioned earlier in the show, and you brought it up with Brian Munson. It kind of feels like there's a seismic shift happening in sports, and I don't think it's a coincidence that you're seeing the best of the best in coaching step down. And from an NIL and transfer portal collective standpoint, and you're starting to see high school sports starting to see cancellation of teams and events as well. It feels like the love of sports is kind of slipping through our fingers, and it's becoming more of a business standpoint. And I think that's why we're seeing the residual effects down to the. There's a little bit to this when you talk about Grand Island. In the show we were talking about it, the Grand Island varsity girls basketball team is canceling and forfeiting their season going forward. Omaha Benson has canceled their last 2 games of their football season. But I feel like there's a major problem in sports as a whole right now, and it's coming from the top down, from an amateur standpoint in college all the way down to the high school ranks. And it's not just one or two things. It's not just the transfer portal. It's not NIL. It's not a problem in the neighborhood or with the class or reclassing. Feels like there's an overall lying problem in sports that needs to be fixed sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, right? Because I think, and Brian Munson hit on this a little bit, it's become an all or nothing world, right? It's like either you're a varsity star looking for a college scholarship and an NIL check, or what's the point, right?
Yeah.
It's almost become an all or nothing world. And so in that, it doesn't make, like, to the kids at the high school level, it doesn't make sense for them to go and grind through an 0-9 season, right? It doesn't make sense to them. I'm a person who went through 3 seasons of varsity football and won 1 game. Right, that was my high school experience.
Was it fun?
It was the time of my life,
and I think
I would do it over again in a heartbeat.
We were talking, and not to keep referencing the Roll Jays podcast, but it was so insightful because we talked to Steve Murfeld, assistant coach at Creighton today, and he talked about when we're talking to AAU kids, it's the question, did you win, never gets brought up anymore.
Yeah.
It's all about how many shots did I get? How many attempts did I get? How many shots did I make? What did my numbers look like? And in a world of NIL, the development piece is just missing because there's no reason for that relationship building to be there because that's not what the kids are worried about. And if we lose that out of sports, like that, like the crazy thing about that is, to me, from the NIL portion of it, like it feels like in the NBA, well, maybe not the NBA to sort, but it feels like in the NFL, that portion is still there. So it's really surprising to me, and maybe because there's no level to chase after the NFL, so you can kind of let that development and relationship building portion come back into it because there's nothing to chase after that. But it's very weird to me that this has been the kind of the catalyst for that to go away.
Sure. And I'll say this, the thing about being a part of an organization that loses a ton is, like, yes, it's demoralizing. Yes, it feels terrible in the moment, but there's some valuable lessons to be learned there. Like, you're not going to win at everything in your life. You're just not. And there are going to be times when you have to take the L and figure out a way to get up the next day and do the rest of your life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And those kinds of lessons, come from sports to such a degree that is almost immeasurable. Like, and coming from that world, like, it was so valuable to just my life in general. Like, it's hard to say that being on one of the losingest football teams in Class B history was
a benefit,
was valuable, was
Yeah.
a benefit, but it actually was, man. Like,
Yeah.
I learned so much from those experiences.
And I'm going to double down because I think a lot of people pointed at Omaha Benson in their football program, deciding and saying that, well, they're losing and that's why. I don't think that's the problem. I think we've reached this part in society where winning and losing doesn't even matter. It's how do I look when I win and lose? And I'm not saying that that's the only thing Omaha Benson was worried about, but I think that's a lot of the problem with a lot of people. I mean, and even not even at the high school level, even at the college level. If we're losing, does that weaken my ability to get name, image, likeness money? Does that weaken my ability to transfer from Akron to Ohio State? Does it, it's how do I look versus how do we look? And I think that's a conversation that is drastically changing for the negative.
It's a conversation that I'm afraid we're going to be having a lot.
What's your trash take tonight?
Okay, you guys touched on this on Wednesday when I was not there in your buy or sell segment. But Jeff Sims is getting the start for Arizona State with their
Jeff
starting
Sims.
quarterback Sam Levitt. He's out for the game against Cincinnati. And honestly, I want Jeff Sims to be successful. I want Jeff Sims to go out and have a great game and win it for Arizona State. Arizona State's off to one of their best starts in recent history, right? They look like a
that defense is good,
competitive football team. And I have no ill will toward Jeff Sims. He was bad at Nebraska. There's no other way to say it, right? But at some point, when you have a player who can't do the job he's being asked to do, the first time he can't do it, that's on him, right? The second time he can't do it, that's on his coaching staff. For running him out there again. I say this constantly. Like, you can make mistakes and you can be a bad football player. It's not your fault if your coaching staff keeps putting you out there to be a bad football player, right?
Yeah, I hated that Casey Thompson broke his leg at FAU, and I was hoping that he was going to get the ability to go out and showcase and maybe have some success. I've never been of the volition of, oh, he left us, we have to hate him, and if it looks good somewhere else, it's bad for Nebraska. I don't think the success that Adrian Martinez had at Kansas State, especially in that Oklahoma game, really reflected negatively on Nebraska in any way, in my opinion. And
no,
obviously, when we have the ability to talk to Adrian, he kind of talked about that being his swan song moment in college football. And I hope everybody gets that. And it would be awesome if Jeff Sims throws for 3 touchdowns and rushes for 2 tomorrow and is able to have that moment, because I think everybody deserves that. With that being said, and I don't want to wish ill will on anybody, it will surprise me if that happens. I don't care if Jeff Sims doesn't win that game tomorrow or doesn't get the moment that I just talked about. I just hope that the ghosts of the past and the turnover problems don't rear their ugly head tomorrow, because we talked about the benefits a minute ago of losing. An issue like that where it's kind of on you.
Yep.
And you're the reason why, specifically in that position, can have really long lasting effects on somebody's psyche for the rest of their life.
Yeah. And here's the thing about Jeff Sims, right? Like, I could understand us, sitting here if he had been a malcontent or he had gotten in a bunch of trouble or
seemed like a good guy,
but all indications were he was a great teammate. He was a great mentor. He was there cheering on Heinrich Harburg and Chubba Purdy. He was high-fiving them, talking to them when they came back to the sideline. Like, he was the consummate teammate when he got benched at Nebraska. And if you're not performing at the level that you need to, then that's the best thing that you can do. And I never saw anything else from Jeff Sims. So I wish him all the best, and I hope he has great success in his start against Cincinnati.
We talk about Matt Rule not doing things without intent behind them. Yep. And I think the one thing that we don't talk about enough, and maybe it's because it was a 5-7 season in grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter. We never heard from Jeff Sims after Big Ten Media Days. And that felt like it was by design from this coaching staff to save him from this fishbowl that is the Nebraska media and the public eye.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was our Papillion Sanitation trash takes of the night. If you missed them, check it out at soundcloud.com/afterhours1620. Dan Campanen, is going to put up the poll of our trash takes at After Hours 1620 on Twitter. Don't forget to go out and vote on who you thought had the better take between John and I. It was brought to you by Jerry Ryan Clothing and Sportswear. Yes, tomorrow is an away game for Nebraska. There are a few home games left on the schedule, and if you want to be the best dressed Husker in Memorial Stadium, stop by 78th and Dodge. They've got the best options from Johnny O and Mizzen and Maine. If you want the best sports shirt, nice and stretchy, comfortable feel, washes easily, you don't have to worry about it shrinking, Johnny O polos are the way to go. Stop by 78th and Dodge. They got it in red, black, and gray. It's an away game. You can wear whatever color you want this week. Stop by 78th and Dodge. Get your Johnny O or Mizzen and Maine polo today. We'll be right back with Lynn McNally, the CEO of Horseman's Park. She's got some news about the phase 2 in Lincoln opening up and what it's going to look like in Omaha as the phases roll in for Warhorse Casino as well. Dan Campen is going to talk to you about Pepper Jack's Grill, and we'll be right back with Lynn McNally here on 1620 The Zone.
Good evening, folks. You know what works up an appetite for me? Doing totally live radio. And you know what's the most important thing after totally live radio? The fact that Pepper Jack's Grill has 10 great local locations where I know that I can go right now and get my favorite, say it with me now, the steak Gunner Philly with all of those vegetables, including the jalapeno juice to make it extra spicy. And I tell you every single night that we have this show that I need to have my French fries from Pepper Jack's. There's nothing quite like French fries from Pepper Jack's that are oh so perfect with that A+ ranch sauce that they have. So, hey, if I just made you hungry like I just made myself hungry, get out to one of Pepper Jack's 10 great local locations tonight.
Attention Pepper Jacks fans, get ready to crunch your way into something new. Introducing Crispy Chicken, your latest protein option. Now available to add to your favorite Philly, rice bowl, nachos, burrito, or salad. It's the perfect golden crunch you didn't know your meal was missing. But hurry, it's only here for a limited time. So head to your nearest Pepper Jacks and make your meal crunch-tastic with Crispy Chicken. Available now at all locations. Get it while it's hot.
Now back to After Hours with Jimmy Allen on 1620 The Zone.
Welcome back inside the After Hours Lounge on a Friday night here on 1620 The Zone, brought to you by Pyramid Contractors. If you are looking to update your windows, gutter, siding, or your roof, they can do it all. You don't become the number one roofer in Omaha for over a decade by accident. Head over to pyramidroof.com and book a free estimate today. Joining us now is Lynn McNally, the CEO of the Horseman here in Omaha. Lynn, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
Obviously, a lot going on at the Horseman and Warhorse Casino. You guys are opening phase 2 in Lincoln this weekend, correct?
No, it's November 4th.
November 4th. I'm sorry.
Yes,
That's right.
yes.
So just a few weeks away. So glad we're getting this out of the way so people can plan to make it down to Lincoln. What does phase 2 in Lincoln look like?
So we're doubling the size of the building, doubling the size of the gaming floor. We're going to nearly 900 gaming positions. And the really big thing happening is that we're going to have table games down in Lincoln. So people are really excited about it.
How much of an advantage was it for you guys to be able to get the table games installed in Omaha, kind of up and running, and get that out of the way to prepare you guys for what's coming to Lincoln?
It's been great. The reason that we really wanted to come out swinging with table games in Omaha is because we've got competition 5 miles away.
Sure.
The other advantage of that, though, is that we had a ton of people come over from Council Bluffs to come and work for us.
Yeah.
So we have experienced dealers in Omaha. That's been great. Lincoln is a little different story. Lincoln is considered, a pristine gaming market, meaning there's been no gaming whatsoever in a 60-mile radius, which is fantastic. People were really hungry for it, and we've done great numbers-wise. But the downside of that is there is apparently not a single person in a 60-mile radius
Sure.
that has experience dealing. So we have a dealer school, that's fine, but it's just taken us a little bit longer to get up and running and be proficient at it because of the dealer issue. But we are ready to go November 4th.
What has kind of been the biggest hurdle in hiring? Has it been the fact the lack of knowledge, or
Well, the biggest hurdle is that in the state of Nebraska, we have extremely low unemployment rates,
Yeah, that's a good
which
point.
is wonderful for the state. But as far as finding workers easily, it's a little more difficult. I don't think we're any different than any other employer that you probably have ever interviewed.
What's the best part of phase 2 that you're looking forward to down in Lincoln?
The space, the room.
Sure.
We're just really desperate for space. It looks more like a traditional casino, what you see when you go into a high-end casino. It's got room. We're spread out. The machines are arranged better. We just didn't have any square footage in our original building, and we tried to, squeeze as many machines in there as we could. But now we've got room to spread out.
Is space as big enough as big of an issue in Omaha? Because that seems pretty spread out. And
No, it's pretty
obviously
spread out.
Nowhere near close to being done. But
Yeah, pretty spread out. And actually, phase 2 of Omaha will be open in the spring. So about 6 months from now, less than 6 months, we'll be up and running there with expanded food options, the new sports lounge, which is
Yeah.
going to be fantastic.
Can you go into a little bit of a detail about what that's going to look like?
Yeah, it's going to be Lance Morgan is really into the new microbreweries that have popped up in the state. He's all about it. So we're going to have multiple taps. And what he would like to do is have kind of a rotation to give Nebraska beers a chance to get a following, get some interest. So we're really excited about that. And of course, we're going to have nonstop sports playing the entire time that that place is open. It'll be open 7 days a week, obviously. And that'll be the place where you can watch a game, or, just come hang out with your friends or watch horse racing.
Yeah, you guys obviously have the sports book set up down there now.
Yes.
And it's not necessarily quite a lounge yet, but the last couple Saturdays that I've been in there, as our followers on social media know, it's been pretty packed with people just sitting around and watching games. Is that surprising to you guys?
That's what we were hoping for.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, we were hoping that people would come hang out with their friends. We have 2 separate areas for simulcasting and sports betting in the Omaha location. And if anyone has noticed, down on the lower level of the clubhouse, they've got it's I've never seen them before. They're basically a high-backed couch, but the back of the couch has a little bar table on the back of it with 3 bar stools behind it.
Oh, very
so
cool.
your buddies can sit on the couch, and then you can have buddies sitting right behind you with having a beer. it's just a great place to hang out and spend the whole day if you want to.
Talk to me about the simulcasting portion of Omaha, because obviously we're just talking about sports, but you guys have a couple kiosks up in the
We sure do.
in the clubhouse as well. How has simulcasting changed, if at all, since the casino opened? Better, worse, and different?
Well, we've got so much more room. I don't know if you were ever out in the trailers in the infield.
Yep.
It was what we could do at the time. It was the best we could do. But it certainly was not an ideal situation for viewing races, enjoying any of it with your friends. It was so cramped in there. So now we've got all the room in the world, and we've got, brand new tables and chairs. It's just a beautiful place.
What is the response been from, because listen, people that have been going to Horston's Park have been going there for a long time.
Long time.
In most cases. What was the response from everybody keeping that clubhouse that was very much a part of Horseman's Park still intact, and now that being the main area for horse racing?
Overall, we've had very high feedback and really great opinions of it.
Right.
The one stumbling block I think we have is parking.
Yeah.
We have a parking garage, and we've got that west parking lot. The west parking lot is full a lot of the times, so you end up having to go to the parking garage. So if you do want to just run in, place a wager, and run back out, it's been kind of an impediment. But we're looking
Get your steps in.
We're looking at solutions to that. So we're talking about doing things that are more user friendly if you want to just get your bets in for the morning and go back home.
Well, and phase 2 in Omaha will include the
Oh,
Skywalk,
yeah.
correct?
It'll be the Skywalk. It'll
Yeah.
be so much more convenient. Really anxious for that to open up.
Have most people been pretty receptive of, hey, we're still kind of building the plane while we're flying?
Yeah,
and this will be better in the future?
they've been really, really accommodating
Yeah.
and really understanding that, we're going through some growing pains, but we're still trying to offer the best possible experience we can.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, I think we do a pretty good job. We've got that center bar. That's a great place to hang out. We have a VIP room for the tier level players. And, that craps table, I have never seen it empty. I have not. Whether it's 10 in the morning or midnight on a Friday night, it's always full. There's
Has that
always
been the most
activity.
surprising thing for you up to this point?
Yeah, I was
Okay.
surprised, but boy, it's popular.
Yeah, it's I don't understand craps. I'll leave that up to everybody else. But every time I've been in there, feels like the whole table's got a full round.
Well, and actually, what we've done is we have actually taken the table that we bought for Warhorse Lincoln, and we're going to be moving it up to Omaha just to
Open up a second one.
to gauge the interest.
Sure.
And if there's enough interest, then we'll order a table for them and ship the Lincoln one back to Lincoln.
Is there anything that you guys thought would be more popular that maybe hasn't been up until this point?
No, not really. We have management that picked out the side bets and the side games on blackjack. And
Okay.
so, I think people are kind of feeling that out.
Sure.
Some of those games are things that they've never experienced before. So I have noticed that people are trying out different tables to see what they like better. So, I'm hoping eventually people kind of settle into their favorites and have a good time.
You guys have a couple different options when it comes to blackjack. You have the triple sevens game.
Yeah.
You've got the essentially 3-card poker with
Uh-huh.
the blackjack game.
Yes, we
and the-
sure do.
And the free bet style. Was that a concentrated effort to make sure that there was a variety?
We tried to offer as much variety as possible and really address the needs of the players. We are very aware that the average casino player now has experience at other locations.
Yeah.
And so, we'd like to offer them the things that they really do enjoy.
I wanted to touch on something, and this may not be your area of expertise, but I want to get. I learned that all your dealers keep their own tips, and that's usually pretty unique to in Omaha. Anyway.
It's very unique.
Why was that the right strategy to go with?
Well, management felt that because we were a new location and we had to hire a lot of people quickly,
Yeah.
we're dealing with a lot of people, including me, who don't have any experience in gaming.
Yeah.
So they really wanted to attract those seasoned dealers that really knew what they were doing. And if you're a seasoned dealer and you're good at your job, keeping your own tips is very attractive to you.
Sure, absolutely.
So we were hoping to get
overwhelmingly positive from those guys.
Yes, overwhelmingly. Some of the best dealers
in the area have come over because they can keep their own tips.
We know you're a Husker at heart. And
Yes, I am. Go Big Red.
There's a big game in Bloomington this weekend. You could bet on it at Warhorse because the game
is away.
Is outside of the state of Nebraska, so you can stop by and place a bet. Get a prediction for us for Saturday?
Hope springs eternal.
Sure. Yep, absolutely.
So, I always pick the Huskers. Even if we're a huge underdog, I always pick the Huskers.
A lot of people are this weekend, so that is a plus. And if you want to bet on that game, you can do so in either Omaha or in Lincoln by stopping by Warhorse Casino and checking out Horseman's Park as well. Is there anything else we haven't touched on about Horseman's Day that people should know?
We have a wide variety of offerings, and don't forget Breeders' Cup is coming up.
That's right.
First weekend in November. So really hoping
anything special going on?
There is
okay.
something special going on. We're doing giveaways, and actually we're kind of taking over parts of Warhorse Omaha. Actually,
okay,
we are taking over part of Sweetwater Cafe, and then part of the VIP room. We're also taking over just exclusively for Breeders' Cup customers. So it's going to be a great experience. We're going to do all kinds of promotions during that weekend. Really hoping that people come out and have a good time and stay after the Breeders' Cup is over and maybe play a slot machine or play some blackjack.
Breeders' Cup is 2 weeks away. It is the weekend of Friday, November 1st through November 2nd. Stop down at Horseman's Park inside of Warhorse Omaha over off 63rd and Q. Lynn, thank you so much for being here. We'll catch up with you in a few weeks.
Thank you. Love being here.
We'll be right back. Speaking of sports betting, we're going to win you some money and give you our Super Dog picks on the other side of the break when we come back here on 1620 The Zone. If you missed Lynn's segment tonight, check it out at soundcloud.com/afterhours1620 or wherever you may find your podcast at. It was brought to you by AX Plumbing. They are locally owned right in Papillion. You need to check out axbservice.com for all your plumbing, water heater, gas piping, and backflow prevention issues. AX Plumbing is locally owned and operated, and they'll leave your home or business cleaner than they found it. Superdog Picks winning you some outright money line bets on the other side of the break. When we come back, 1620 The Zone. Hey, everybody, it's Jimmy Allen here for Cunningham's Pub. Listen, Sunday ticket is so expensive. If you don't want to pay it out of pocket, but you want a great atmosphere to attend all of the football games and enjoy some great brunch food and drinks along the way, Cunningham's Pub is the place for you. 2 great locations, 108th and Old Mill Road, and also the historic Blackstone District. Get out. They've got multiple TVs at each location. They're going to have your favorite game on Sundays. Also, every college football game you could ever imagine is also going to be on the TVs at Cunningham's. Get out to Cunningham's Pub and enjoy dinner and drinks. Maybe the best culinary menu at a bar you're going to find in the city of Omaha. Cunningham's Pub, 2 great locations, Old Mill or Blackstone. Either one is enjoyable. Get out, grab dinner and drinks tonight.
Attention Pepper Jacks fans, get ready to crunch your way into something new. Introducing Crispy Chicken, your latest protein option. Now available to add to your favorite Philly, rice bowl, nachos, burrito, or salad. It's the perfect golden crunch you didn't know your meal was missing. But hurry, it's only here for a limited time. So head to your nearest Pepper Jacks and make your meal crunch-tastic with Crispy Chicken. Available now at all locations. Get it while it's hot.
The leaves are on the ground and the footballs are in the air. That means it's time for a fall tune-up. Locally owned and operated with 18-month same-as-cash financing available, Controlled Comfort is your one-stop shop for all your HVAC needs. With over 350 five-star Google reviews, Controlled Comfort is the cream of the crop. Head over to ControlledComfort.com for all your HVAC needs today.
Control Comfort keeps it under control.
Closing her down on a Friday night, brought to you by Papillion Sanitation. No, I'm sorry, brought to you by Pyramid Contractors. Thank you to Papillion Sanitation for sponsoring our Trash Takes. But we are brought to you by Pyramid Contractors. If you want to replace your roof, windows, gutters, or siding, you can do it at pyramidroof.com. They'll give you a free estimate, come out and diagnose your issues and fix your problems for you. Check out pyramidroof.com for more details tonight. It is time for Super Dogs. If you're a listener for the After Hours Lounge for the first time, what we do here is we pick 3 teams that are outright underdogs to outright win this weekend in football. John Schreiner, I am going to go ahead and start us off here. I already told you earlier in the night, Nebraska 6.5 point underdog. I think they win by 2 scores or more. Give me Nebraska plus 6.5 on the road in Bloomington. A line I don't understand. I know UConn football is vastly improved this year as opposed to where it has been historically. They are 4-2 on the season. Wake Forest goes to UConn as a 2.5 point underdog. I will take a Power 5 school over the UConn Huskies in football every day of the week. Give me Wake Forest to win that game. And the Steelers at home in the NFL are 2-point underdogs to the New York Jets. If you look up bad vibes in the dictionary, there's a picture of Aaron Rodgers with the New York Jets logo right next to his face. Give me the Steelers, even with Russell Wilson cooking at home to win that game.
There's a lot of NFL lines that are curious this week, right? Like there's some.
It's a pretty good slate, though.
It's a good slate, and there's some lines that make you raise an eyebrow if you can do that.
The Rock,
yeah,
you're the best Dwayne Johnson person.
Yeah, I like that Steelers pick. That's a good one. It just missed making my list, however.
I have an honorable mention too, by the way, but I'll let you finish yours.
All right. Okay, I got 2 in the NFL. I don't understand why the Texans are 2.5 point dogs at Green Bay. I realize it's a road game.
Because the Packers suck, right, Dan?
Get it?
Dan says yes.
But the Texans are really good. Like the Texans are really good, and they look like they're probably the second best team in the AFC right now. I think they've looked like the best team in the AFC. I know the Chiefs are undefeated, but for all intents and purposes, like wins and losses aren't everything in the NFL. I think Houston's looked like the best team. Yeah, Baltimore may have something to say about that. Their struggles in the first couple of weeks are well behind them now.
Yeah, that's the only reason. And listen, those losses aren't necessarily as bad as we thought they were,
Sure.
except for the Raiders.
So I'll take the Texans on the money line to beat Green Bay as plus 2.5 dogs. I'm going to break your heart a little bit here. I think the Chiefs win. I think they go in and beat the 49ers as plus 2 point underdogs.
I mean, history would say you're right.
I mean, all of the injury concerns for the 49ers, they look like they've figured some things out a little bit, but I still don't know if I fully trust them. I'm still taking the Chiefs in this spot. Like I can't count on Patrick Mahomes to lose.
Feels like the safe bet.
Yeah. And then my pick in college football, South Carolina goes to Oklahoma and gets 1.5 points.
Oof.
I think things are bad in Oklahoma. I don't think things are going well. They're starting a freshman quarterback now. South Carolina has 2 tremendous edge rushers. They're really good on the outside. They were millimeters from pulling off a huge comeback and beating Alabama last week. I think South Carolina's decent. I think they beat Oklahoma.
My honorable mention is in college football. I don't know if you know this. Purdue is bad.
They're bad.
Really bad. But it is so difficult not only to win in college football, but to get up 2 weeks in a row, especially when you're coming off the game of this of your season. Tonight, we're probably halfway through this game by this point, but Oregon is a 29.5-point favorite tonight. If you're getting a live line on this, it probably sounds better in real time. But Oregon has to come to West Lafayette. We've talked about the lack of energy that's in that stadium. Oregon had to have all the juice they possibly could a week ago in that home game against Ohio State. 5 touchdowns. 5 touchdowns. That's a lot against anybody, especially a conference opponent that you're facing for the first time in an away game at night on a Friday on a shortened season. This is pre-recorded. This is happening at noon on Friday. So if somehow Purdue is winning this game right now, you're saying, that's really easy to say in hindsight. I don't see any way Oregon goes out and wins by 30 points tonight. I don't care who they're playing.
I don't know, man. Purdue.
They're bad. I'll give you. I started off with the pretense. 1-5. Purdue is not good.
Look, it like they gave Illinois quite a scare last week.
Yeah, 50-49 was the final in that game, by the way.
It seems like the quarterback change might have sparked something with that offense.
Yeah, I agree. And
that said, they lost to Wisconsin 52-6. So, I mean,
but they were able to bounce back. And listen, playing Wisconsin and Illinois on the road isn't necessarily playing the number 2 team in the country at home at night on a Friday night. I think there's going to be a little bit of juice in that state. We talk about West Lafayette for all the negative connotations, and it feels like the sky is never any other color but gray in that city. I think tonight there's going to be a little bit of an energy in that building with Oregon coming to town. And I'm not going to say it's an upset. I'm not going to say Oregon's going to lose this game, but I think Oregon's set for a little bit of a letdown situation. And we've seen them play with their food this year. I mean, we've seen the Idaho game earlier in the season. Obviously, it looked completely different a week ago, but it feels like a real big letdown situation. Maybe a 21, a 24, a 17-point victory for the Ducks, which would not really be anything to sneeze at unless you're betting them to win tonight.
I guess I can kind of see this going one of two ways, because I don't think Purdue is going to score on Oregon's defense.
I think that's fair.
I just don't feel like Purdue is going to be able to move the ball. So this is either going to be like a 42-0 absolute knockout, or it's going to be like a 28-3 something.
Which would be a Purdue cover, by the way.
It would. I don't think Purdue scores more than 10 points in this game.
What game this weekend are you looking forward to the most in college?
Man, I mean, obviously the Texas-Georgia game is huge. That's a big one. But I think I might actually, because I feel like Texas is going to win that game, and I feel like I know what's going to happen already. Yeah, fairly convincingly. I don't think it's going to be an in doubt late. So the Alabama-Tennessee game becomes really intriguing. Like I sent you my will, won't, shoulds for Wednesday when I wasn't.
We read them.
There.
We read them.
I just like the winner of this game immediately becomes the number 2 team in the SEC behind Texas. So I think it's super interesting.
I think the game that may steal some viewership from that from that Alabama Tennessee game is Notre Dame Georgia Tech. Obviously, we've seen Notre Dame be a little bit prone. It kind of feels like they've gotten Marcus Freeman and that group have gotten some things figured out, but Georgia Tech has looked the part this season. I mean, they're coming off back-to-back wins over Duke and North Carolina. They played Louisville competitively. They probably should have won that game against Syracuse. Georgia Tech can win this football game, and that game is in Atlanta. And I don't necessarily know if they should be an underdog in this game. I know Notre Dame is the number 12 team in the country, but this could be the week that we see Notre Dame get knocked out of the playoff race.
There's another sneaky good game in the SEC in the 6 o'clock window, and that's Arkansas LSU. Like Arkansas is 4-2, and they've been really competitive. They nearly, they nearly beat Oklahoma State early in the season.
Yeah, they should have won that game.
And they lost to Texas A&M by 4, and then they beat Tennessee last week. So you might be worried about a big upset letdown this week with LSU. Going to LSU, but Arkansas is competitive, man, and this could be a really good game.
Yeah, it kind of feels like Sam Pittman saved his job up until this point, right? I don't think they're going to fire him at the end of the
He
season.
doesn't look like
the
it.
first half of the season is gone.
I mean, unless they finish 4-8, lose their last 6,
which is not out of the realm of possibilities. I
Nope.
don't think that happens. The other game tonight, though, is Oklahoma State BYU, and that one kicks off at 9:15.
Huge Big 12 implications.
Yeah, man, it's a really bad look for this Oklahoma State team that was the betting favorite to win the conference. If you lose 4 straight and essentially just completely knocked out of contention, you're probably out of contention for the Big 12 title at this point, but to be completely out of the discussion by October 18th, not a great look for that offense.
That defense has just been so bad.
It's not even that. I mean, when you look at when you have a running back of the caliber of Ollie Gordon, and through 6 games, he's only accounted for 384 yards. Not great. Not great. And that offensive line's got a ton of question marks around him, because last year he equated for 1,700 yards on the ground. He's not even going to sniff that this season.
Well, and Alan Bowman is in his 23rd year of college football now.
24th.
So, sorry. And I'm wondering, does Zane Flores get a look if things go awry?
Feels like they need a spark, man. And tonight could be that night.
Yeah. That's an interesting one tonight as well.
This has been the After Hours Lounge. We appreciate you joining us tonight. If you missed any of the show, check it out at soundcloud.com/afterhours1620 or wherever you may find your podcast at. Our bets tonight were brought to you by our friends at Warhorse Casino and Sportsbook. Yes, slots, table games, and yes, that Sportsbook is open. Nebraska's on the road this week, so you can bet on them by stopping by 63rd and Q. If you or somebody you know is struggling with a gambling problem, call 402-806-7344 today. For John Schreiner, I've been Jimmy Allen. That's Dan Campen. And enjoy National Chocolate Cupcake Day, everybody.
Less frosting.
All right.